what if I get that wrong? And he goes, you'll blow the engine up. I'm going to tell you the story of how I traded for a BiPlane when I was 16 years old. And it all started really when I was 14. I learned to fly in sailplanes. And when I turned 16, you could solo in a powered plane. So my neighbor knew of a guy who was an instructor, and I went up and talked to him, and I began to learn to fly a powered plane there. And it only took 2.5 hours to solo because I had 200 hours in sailplanes already prior to that. I flew it was an Aeronica Champ, and I flew it for about less than 20 hours, and I wanted to trade for an airplane. And I asked my instructor what airplane I should trade for, and his answer was a Great Lakes Trainer, which is a biplane, a 1930s era biplane. And it just so happened my father had given me an old used Corvette, and I was afraid to drive the car. I was kind of leery of that car. And so I asked him, I said, do you mind if I trade the car for a biplane? And he goes, it's your car, you can do whatever you want with it. So I got out a Trade-A-Plane and looked in the Trade-A-Plane, and there was an ad for a guy out in Stanton, Texas wanting to sell a Great Lakes. So I called him on the phone and I said, I'd like to talk to you about your Great Lakes that's for sale. And he told me all about the airplane, and I said, well, would you trade for a Corvette? Well, I said, would you trade for anything? And he goes, the only thing I'd trade for is a Corvette. And I go, well, I have one. And he goes, well, it would have to be a certain Corvette, a 60s era with a large engine in it. And I said, that's actually what I have. And he goes, son, how old are you? And I go, 16 years old. And he goes, you mind putting your parents on the phone? So I walked over and handed my dad the phone. He was laying in bed, actually. I walked in with the phone. These were the old landline phones. And I handed him the phone, and my dad, the conversation I heard from my dad was, yeah, it's his car. Yeah, it's his. Yeah, he can do whatever he wants. And then he goes, but I'll never buy him another car. And he hands me the phone. And I get back on it, and the guy goes, hey, I'll fly out next Thursday with the airplane, and we'll look at doing a trade. It just so happened the airport was a quarter mile behind this high school I was in. So I skipped a day of school and drove this Corvette over to the little grass strip. And my instructor showed up with me. And lo and behold, we heard an engine, and we looked out to the west, and here comes a Great Lakes. And it comes in and lands, and the guy looks at the car, and we look at the airplane, and we end up trading even, right? So I owned a factory-built Great Lakes aerobatic plane, and I only had about 18 hours of flight time. I was still on a student certificate, and the guy that flew the biplane in got in the car and had driven off, and I told my instructor, I said, because I had traded off my car, I said, if you'll get in the airplane, I'll drive your car up to your airport and we'll put it in your hangar. And he goes, I'm not going to fly the airplane, you are. And I said, well, I've never flown anything that's 180 horsepower. I've never flown a constant speed. I've never flown a biplane, and I've never flown open cockpit. I really need you to do it. And he goes, you're fully capable of it. And he signed my student certificate where I was okay to solo it, which was fine, oddly enough, because I'd flown many single-seat sailplanes. So the first time I got in those sailplanes was the first time I ever was able to operate one. There was no, we'll check you out and duel. So I was used to doing that, but it really did catch me off guard. So I got in, and of course it had a throttle prop mixture for that constant speed prop. And I looked down there and I go, but I don't know how to run a constant speed propeller. And I still remember this. The sage advice I got was forward with the prop, then the throttle, back with the throttle, then the prop. And I go, what if I get that wrong? And he goes, you'll blow the engine up. And I just go, holy cow. What he didn't say was that was after hundreds of hours of getting it wrong. The engine's robust enough to handle it. He said it to me like it was a piece of dynamite, so I was so nervous. Well, the airport was south of his airport, directly south by about 10 miles. So I'm sitting in there in that airplane for the first time, very nervous about flying it, very nervous about blowing the engine up. And I go, what I'm going to do is take off, do a 180-degree turn, get pointed up to the north, aim right for his airport, pass it, do a 180-degree turn, and land. No playing around. Just get it off this airport to that one. So I get down to the end of the runway, get everything set, throw the power up, and the airplane accelerated faster than anything I had ever flown. It climbed out faster than anything I had ever flown. It turned quicker than anything I had ever flown. And I literally was very behind the airplane, yet I was managing it. And I got it turned around, and I tried to settle down, tried to just get it on the heading I needed, settled down, here's where we're going. Yet my adrenaline was just pouring through me because, I've got tremendous amount of fresh air pouring in on me. It's open cockpit. I'm trying to take it in to get ready to land. And before I knew it, I was at the other airport, and I arced around, and I came in and landed and taxied up to my instructor's hangar, beat him by half an hour. And I climbed out of the airplane, and I never shake. I've never had a problem with shaking, and I literally was like this. I had so much adrenaline, and I had to lean up against the airplane just to hold myself up. And I thought, that was so... I was so far behind the airplane. I was so adrenalined up, just trying to keep up. And I thought, but you know what? Next time it'll be so much easier because I did it. One of the biggest things ever happened in my life was trading for that airplane, which I still own today. And I traded for that airplane in 1982. So that is 42 years I've owned that airplane. It's been in my life that long. And to grow up as a young kid around airplanes, liking airplanes, wanting an airplane, it was unbelievable. So that's my story.